The Ghibli Journey continues in episode 27 of the Elbow Nudge podcast. But first, we have to address the elephant in the room, Caroline.
We do. We do.
Right at the start,
Yeah, the best place to put it, and I
we have
agree.
to, how do you say, take accountability.
Yeah, yeah.
We need to talk, dot, dot, dot.
Dot dot dot. The date. Put the date and just the
Yeah.
date. Um. So everyone, I have made a severe and continuous lapse of judgment. Last week, in last week's episode 26, our Castle in the Sky episode, I incorrectly cited a tweet from James Gunn saying that his top 3 Ghibli movies were Spirited Away, Castle in the Sky, and Porco Rosso. And that was very much incorrect. I got 1 out of 3. Spirited Away was in that list, but his top 3 Ghibli movies are in fact Spirited Away, Grave of Fireflies, and Princess Mononoke. And it wasn't until I was editing the highlights that I dug up the tweet to like pull it up, and I was like, "Oh no, I completely recalled this." And yeah, so we're correcting course, and we are going to watch. Like that's why we're here. We're watching Princess Mononoke to really, really do the Ghibli journey.
Wait, is it Princess Mononoke or Princess Mononoke?
Mononoke. I'm adding another no in there. Princess Mononoke? Mononoke? You know, some things
Caroline,
just roll off the tongue.
you're the Ghibli fan here. What's going on?
But Princess Mononoke is not one of my top
Okay.
Ghibli films.
You know what? It caught my attention when you said that because in my head I say it like that too. And I like the way it sounds, Mononoke. I like it. But it's Mononoke.
Yes.
I feel like this is one of those things that you want to keep going because it just feels nice to say.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a total side note, but I do that with another word too.
Which one?
It's called, you know what a taqueria is?
Yeah, Takeria.
Yeah. So when I was young, my mom, she was, I guess it's just something left over because she's not a first, like English was her first language. She learned Spanish later in life. Um, so she would always tell me there was this restaurant near my house called Taqueria Mexico. And my mom would always tell me, hey, we're going to go to Taqueria Mexico. So growing up, I always called it that. And anytime I saw the word taqueria, I would pronounce it taqueria, add a little extra umph in there. Until
Are you
one day,
still doing this?
yes, actually. But it's more of a funsy thing with my parents. I don't actually tell people like, oh, you're gonna go to the taqueria, like taqueria on the left. Like, no, I tell
Right.
them taqueria. But I was with my friends, and we were driving around the area, and I was telling them, hey, we should go eat at that restaurant. Let's go eat at Taqueria Mexico. And my friend was like, say it again. Like, look at that word and say it again. And it hit me like just like now.
By
With
that time, did you realize you were wrong already, or was that the
That was the
realization?
awakening.
Oh,
Yeah, that
really?
was that was the realization and awakening. And then I called my mom and I had the same conversation with her. I was like, Mom, we've been saying it wrong.
Does your mom say it taqueria now?
No, she still
She keeps the extra syllable.
she stands her ground and
Okay.
says taqueria. But it's the same thing with Mononoke. It just added a little extra in there, a little extra syllable.
Yeah, I don't blame you on either of those. I wanted to do well. We had to do another Ghibli film because we had to address this big problem of false
Mhm.
information
Fake
on the Elbow
news
Nudge podcast. Yes,
on my part, yes.
but also, we had two other choices. We had Princess Mononoke, and then now what is James Gunn's second?
Grave of Fireflies?
Grave of Fireflies. That was the other
Mhm.
one.
Yep.
I chose this one just because it sounded cool. Just a name.
And it was on HBO Max.
And it was on HBO Max. That's right. So we're talking about Princess Mononoke, of course. But before we
Yes.
get to that, a couple more. I've been holding off on
Okay.
asking you these. We're still on the James Gunn top three
I
thing,
knew
by the
it.
way.
Yeah. I felt it last when we spoke post me sending you the tweet. I knew that there was going to be some questions.
Yeah. So how did you come up with Castle in the Sky and Porco Rosso just
I
randomly?
I think this is another Moana phenomenon with me. You know, I just I remember the I remember the scene from Castle in the Sky when that robot gives the flower, and I guess my mind was just like, "Oh, that's like Groot." So this was another one in James Gunn's
Top
uh
three.
top 3. And then there was the one about Age of Ultron cuz I had always known the Age of Ultron like tidbit for Castle in the Sky. And so that was where I guess whenever you had asked me, "Oh, what were the 3?" I had completely forgotten, but I just brought out those other
You
2.
started making them up.
Not making them up. I really did believe that those were the ones in his top list,
Oh,
but I
I
was
know you
just like
believed it. I know you did.
I recalled incorrectly.
And Porco Rosso?
That's the one that I don't know how I got that.
You brought up the Groot and the Guardians thing. That's another one. After you sent me that tweet, I thought, man, we really messed up with that. We were making connections where there were none.
I mean, there
We didn't even
could
know if James Gunn saw this film.
he's got to have. There's so many connections.
Maybe, maybe not.
Plus, I think if you've seen 3 Ghibli films, you're gonna also see more.
Maybe.
This is hearsay, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But yeah, that does mean like I was listening back to the episode while I was editing, and this is post me realizing my blunder, and I was like, we had some long conversations
Yeah.
about connections between these two, and
Yeah, yeah. We were
they're
really
all
digging deep on that.
they're all hearsay.
So, Caroline, we apologize to James Gunn.
I personally, because you know, you're here for the ride, and it was on me to do the research for that episode, and I dropped the ball on that one. So I apologize to
But I was
James Gunn.
compliant. So we apologize to James Gunn. We apologize to Ghibli fans, and
To our listeners.
and Caroline, you got to apologize to yourself as well. Give yourself a break, and it's okay. We move on.
Wow, I'm gonna cry.
All right. So I think that's it. I think that's it. It was just funny that. Oh yeah, and I want to ask you: do you think this is a case of too much coffee or not enough coffee?
You know what? I think I'm gonna side with you on this. I think it was a case of too much coffee.
Too much?
Yeah.
Are
That
you
day,
coffeeed up right now?
uh, no. The last time I had coffee was 9 a.m. So that was
All
this
right.
morning. We are currently in the afternoon times.
All right.
So I'm not fully coffeeed up, but I am awake.
Okay. So let's move on to Princess Mononoke.
Princess Mononoke.
Yeah.
So you said that you picked this movie because, like, out of the two, out of Grave of Fireflies and Princess Mononoke, because it looked cool. But after
No, just
seeing
a
it,
name.
yeah, and then the name sounded cool. So after seeing it, do you think it was a cool movie?
I think it was a cool movie. I
Oh,
think it was.
I was worried that you wouldn't like this film because it's very Japanese. It has a lot to do with Japanese mythology and like it's kind of historical. Not historical like historical accuracy, but like what they wear and their villages and things like that. And Miyazaki himself even called it a historical, like because it's set in feudal Japan. So I was a little worried that this might be a little bit Japanese overload for you.
For my American eyes.
For your American non-anime loving eyes.
Right, right. I could see that. But I just really like the story. I think that's the most important for me.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about this because we're in the Ghibli journey. So, of course, I'm thinking about Castle in the Sky and Spirited Away. And easily better than Castle in the Sky, I would say. But then I was thinking about Spirited Away. That's a tough one to beat. It is. I think Spirited Away is still better, but I think if I were to watch any of these again, it would be Princess Mononoke. I think it's a more enjoyable theme.
Wow. I like that though. Yeah. I mean, Spirit Away, if I going to my rankings, yes, Princess Mononoke is better than Castle in the Sky, but you know I'm biased to Spirit Away. I've already told you I've seen it many times and I've only seen Mononoke once, but I think like for a first view to want to see it again makes sense because I think if you go back to it's really cool on the rewatch, Princess Mononoke. There was a lot of little comparisons and things that you might miss in the film. I'll list them off later because I have a list of them, like parallels in the movie. But yeah, it's the story is I feel like it's so grand. Spirited Away is very nice in its smallness. Like even though like, she's going to the spirit world and things like that. But the movie is also kind of mundane because you're just following her doing tasks until these bigger events happen. And those were kind of the complaints in like Rotten Tomatoes. You know how we were reading those
Yeah, yeah.
reviews on how it was like, oh, it's really like what was like how did they describe the story? That it was like a set of vignettes of her in the bathhouse
Yeah,
until
like kind of aimless you're
yes.
describing.
Whereas Mononoke has this grand story and you have these sweeping shots and this whole like good and evil balance and the humans and spirits and animals and nature and it was just like a huge story in and of itself.
That's what I like too. I didn't really bring that up, but I that's usually something that keeps me very invested in a movie when it has a strong focus on something. And it doesn't have to be one singular thing because obviously this is not just one idea. There's a lot of layers in this movie, but I do like the themes of the war going on between preserving nature and then the greed of man and everything else that comes with it. And it's interesting, and I like that it's been done a few times. I don't know if we'll start talking about other movies that have done this, but um, I'm a fan of it. But still, I think I'll have Spirited Away as number one, even though it was I wouldn't call it aimless, but even though it was slower pace or whatever, just about like a slice of life kind of thing. I think it just I like those empty moments we spoke about. I think it does a lot of I don't know, it just gets the right feeling. It feels right when you're watching it.
I agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
But Princess Mononoke, a lot of cool things about it. The violence, I was not expecting all the of dismemberment of
Dis
blood.
disarmament,
Yeah.
disembodying
Yeah.
violence.
Yeah, that was a surprise. And this it goes back to what I was asking you in our other conversations of this is an animated movie, so I usually think it's going to target kids, whether or not it's supposed to target kids, because I think they naturally gravitate towards watching animation. But should a kid watch this?
There was I, I forgot to include that in my notes, but the same thing was asked to Miyazaki because he felt that because he that's his thing is he's always said that he aims his film in the general direction of kids, but he also wants like people to he wants to make a film just to make a film, but he wants to show kids and give kids good role models, show them good stories, and so he does aim his films towards children. And I'm trying to find the quote where he said that he included this violence in Mononoke because he felt that children should I guess like it was something to do with his anti-war sentiment how you shouldn't hide violence from children, not like violence like I don't know how to do it, like the bad kind of violence. I don't know how to say it. Let me just try to
I
find the
already know what
quote.
you meant when you brought that up. Like it's supposed to show how ugly it could be and how startling it could be to see something like that.
Yeah. And here, I think I found it. But the the producer, I think I mentioned him in the Castle in the Sky episode, Toshio Suzuki, had told him like, "Hey, this movie is pretty violent. Like, I don't know if this is good and like I don't know if this is appropriate to show children." And that Miyazaki said something like we shouldn't be hiding like war and violence from them because then they're going to grow up and be desensitized to it. Like you should show it in balance, like how violence is not good and how it's not like remove all violence or show so much violence they're desensitized to it, but there's a happy medium.
Just to give them a little glimpse of reality.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking when I'm watching these movies, I'm thinking about my niece and nephew. I'm like, would I show them this one? I don't know.
I don't know about Mononoke.
I would maybe. It's violent, but not that violent because it's only when they're fighting. Some fighting scenes have, arrows knocking off people's heads and chopping off arms, but there's not that much, or it's not like constant fast paced action scenes. It does slow down. And then not every action scene has people's limbs being cut off and stuff.
I found it. I found it. He did an interview um in this book called Turning Point. Miyazaki shared his thoughts on Princess Mononoke's target demographics. And he said while making the film, he originally intended Mononoke for teenagers, but that as production progressed, he said, I lost sight of whom I intended as my audience. People of differing ages came to see the film. And Miyazaki was surprised, but positively surprised about children as young as kindergarten ages coming and seeing his film filled with dismemberment and depression is what he
Wow.
said. But then he says what I want is elementary school children to see the struggle between man and nature. Yes, kindergartners may cry at the brutal scenes, since those scenes deal with problems of life and death. I really wanted to depict them so that they could be understood just as they are. I also don't want people to dismiss the presence of blood as something horrifying. And then where is it? One reporter in Berlin claimed the film was too violent for kids. Miyazaki responded saying, I am fully aware of that opinion, but children most certainly have violence within them. Unless we touch upon that, I don't think the film can be convincing to children. When I began making this film, I didn't want small children to see it, but as the film neared completion, I started to see that young children would be more intuitively understand the essence of this film.
I was thinking also, like we mentioned for other things, when you're of a certain age, you'll just glaze over certain scenes. There's probably a good amount of kids who would watch this and not remember the violent parts.
Yeah.
They probably won't even affect them at all. And then when they rewatch it later as teenagers or adults, they'll have that effect of, whoa, this was actually pretty bloody. Or I don't remember this, those kind of things.
I had that effect when we were watching it again for this episode. I saw this back when I was like 14, maybe 13, around there, early
You
teenagers.
were the target audience.
Yeah, I was, but I had completely forgotten about all of the like dismemberment, the arrow flying and cutting off heads and things like that. I only remember when they cut off the head of the forest spirit. And I remember that scene, but other than that, I had completely forgotten about the other violence until we watched it and I was like, "Whoa, I don't remember this."
It's also interesting that he made it with intent because there's also a lot of things that you can kind of argue you don't need this much blood and violence, but he had a reasoning behind this.
Yeah.
Sometimes shows do it for shows and movies do it just for the sake of being as bloody as possible for no reason.
So, did you know that this movie has two names in
So
well,
the American name.
in within Studio Ghibli, they were calling it by two names and they couldn't figure out which name to release it under. One of them is Mononoke Hime, which is Princess Mononoke, and the second one is The Legend of Ashitaka.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so when it came to actually releasing it, they felt that adding, because the word Mononoke means a vengeful spirit or like an angry animal spirit. And so when you add princess to it, that's how they were describing San. So they were saying she is like a female vengeful spirit. And whenever they were like, you know what, this sounds more what our movie is kind of focused around, is like it points more towards the tale of nature and versus humanity or all these kind of things, rather than it just being called The Legend of Ashitaka, even though Ashitaka is the main character of this film. So that's when they released it under the name Mononoke Hime. And then when it got released 2 years later after its premiere in Japan. It got released 2 years later in America, and that's when they were like, "Oh, this is where we should put The Legend of Ashitaka." But Miyazaki was like, "No, just translate it literally and keep it, even though they might not know what Mononoke means."
Yeah, I didn't know what it meant. But that's interesting because yeah, it is more, well, not about Ashitaka, but it follows him more. And then Princess Mononoke, I think she's like sprinkled throughout. At least it felt that way. I think it follows
Yeah,
Ashitaka more.
she's she's not in it a lot. There's only like a couple of scenes where she's in it, and I mean, she's maybe like in 40% of the film.
Yeah, but it's true because the theme of what the name represents, it is more closely associated to her.
Hmm. And to what kind of the whole conflict is around.
But vengeful, I didn't think of that. It does make sense, but from her character, I was just thinking more like angry or hateful because she said a few times that she doesn't like humans. But it's true, it is also vengeful. She didn't want revenge on Iboshi and
Lady
just
Eboshi.
anyone who is threatening the forest.
It makes sense because there's also like she was abandoned by her parents. They like threw her at the spirits, like not caring what happened to her. And then, as she's taken in, raised, and loved by the animal spirits, then the humans, other humans, burn down the forest, which is like their source of life. So there's like another reason to be vengeful and hate her, like and hate humans.
You know what I thought of?
Hmm.
You probably won't like this comparison though, but I'm gonna
Oh,
bring it up.
okay.
I thought of the vegan thing again. There's a very small, barely even representative of all vegans. But they have that same effect too when they watch these documentaries on like the factory farming and things like that, and what how the cows and pigs and chickens are treated, and and the sea life like whales and fishes, like it gets them so upset where they have that a sort of hatred for people and what they do to animals. And I kind
Hmm.
of thought like, that's probably exactly what Princess Mononoke is feeling to humans, because she says specifically that she hates humans
Yeah,
when she is one herself.
definitely. Like, I see the vegan argument, but I always hear I can't stand like the whole industry of like factory farming and really just mistreating animals and nature over consumerism. And this movie, I think, really touched on that because you even see San, she eats like meat and she eats jerky and things like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
she's upset because humans are valuing their growth and industry over like nature and the world. And it's really applicable. I feel like the message of this movie doesn't date itself. Like it can withstand the test of time.
When did it come out again?
1997
And we got the same story with Avatar. I have to bring it up.
and Fern Gully.
But Avatar was the latest, right?
Yeah.
And we're in the midst of an Avatar 2 after 10 years.
Yeah, what's the subtitle for that? Avatar 2, like I was going to say The Shape of Water. But
You're you look it up, but I'm pretty sure it's like the spirit of water or the water is definitely the title, but the flow of water, the
the
love of
way
water,
the way
the
of
way
water.
of water. Okay, they made it like a big news thing when a while ago they announced all five title, well, all four titles. Remember, we saw that list together. They already announced the title of the next four movies.
Oh
So I don't know
yeah.
why they made it a big deal.
I guess because people didn't pay attention to that.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we're almost there. We're almost there for the next Avatar. But anyways, a theme has come up again. Is I think it's a I like this idea honestly, and I don't get tired of it. I think it's something that could be retold in different ways. Just man versus nature. There's always a story to be told there.
Especially with all these different and kind of like, yes, I see the argument. People always say it like, oh, it's like, I think what was the other one? Pocahontas,
Yeah.
Fern Gully, Princess Mononoke. But each of those films are so different. And they have such different settings and characters and ways to frame this issue that I think it's more of a testament to the message itself on how it can take so many forms and still be understood.
Yeah, you already know I'm an Avatar defender. I think it's a great movie. And I know the arguments of it not being quotable and nobody remembering any character names and things like that.
I
I
just heard
get all that.
Jake Sully.
Jake Sully.
Jake Sully.
I get all that, but after seeing Princess Mononoke, I think yeah, it's the same theme, but it's done very differently.
Mhm.
There's more going
Mhm.
on. Like this is more in tap with the spiritual nature of it. Like a lot more. We have talking animals,
Yeah.
which was cool. They weren't like their
I
lips weren't moving
I
to
like
how they were
that.
talking.
I like that a lot. Like that was something that I just I like that they weren't being all like ah, rah, rah, rah. Like you can see
Yeah,
the
moving
mouth
their lips to
flaps.
their words.
It just it relayed a lot more and a lot more like powerful, I think, where it's like, oh, the what's her name? Maro, the wolf.
Yeah,
Oh, I love her. I love her so much. In Japan, Maro is supposed to be a boy.
it sounds like if I hear Morrow, I would have assumed the boy.
Yeah, in Japan, it's Maro was voiced by a male, but when coming to America, a lot of things were changed. We'll get into that later. Like the whole Mononoke from apparently if you go from Japanese to English, very different in terms of the script and how they talk and things like that. But one of the big changes is that Maro was changed to a woman because they felt that the character of Maro in the film was more motherly and that the mother wolf and like those were her cubs and or like her pups kind of thing, and so that's why it was changed to a girl.
So I want to bring something up along those lines then.
Okay.
And then also to finish up the Avatar thing and the comparison, Avatar is different because they instead of being tapped into like they did the spiritual route as well,
Oh
but
yeah.
then but it was also like more technology too, like the way they all had to like link in to like
Mm-hmm.
take over a body of a I forgot what they're called,
uh...
blue people. Anyway, so on that note of the Morrow thing, that's very interesting. But I gotta
the
ask you
Navi.
about this because I'm thinking, is there anything that Miyazaki said or whatever about? Because there's a lot of girl power in this movie.
There's a lot of girl power in the
I'm
movie.
watching this movie and there's just like a lot of examples of girl power. And you just gave one example of Moro being switched to being a mother, well, at least in America. But I wrote some examples. There's probably a lot more, but I'm thinking Lady Eboshi, her alone already, she's a leader. She lays down the law. She's strong. She knows how to fight. But also, she wants an army of women. Specifically, she wants an army of women. They're looking for iron and building weapons, guns, rifles, and is being built with the women in mind. She mentions how it needs to be. of a certain weight so that they can carry it and handle it well. And then all the women that are there in their bathrobes and towels on their heads, they're all tough. They're all fighters. They've been, I don't know how far along they are in this process, but they already seem like they're like some sort of, I want to say army, but that sounds too big. There's some sort of like special fighting operation. I don't know what it is, but or group of guards or something. The other thing being, none of them respect the men there. I'm sure I know that was more for jokes, but none of them respect the men, especially in that bar scene. They only liked Ashitaka because he was handsome, and I guess he's new. A new guy there in the village. But it was more poking fun, I'm sure. But that also made me think that for the first time, that made me think, oh, they all married? Is that all? Is everyone sitting at that table like husbands of the girls there? But no, there's like dialogue later down the road that it kind of assumes like no, a lot of them are single, or we know one person that's married. We could talk
Yeah,
about that in a bit,
yeah.
but anyway, yeah. And then outside of that, just slightly related, and then again, Princess Mononoke, she doesn't like humans at all, but I think she's no. I'm trying to remember. Does she have like any connection to any of the other girls? But no, I don't think so. It's just strictly animals. And she doesn't like Eboshi, obviously.
Oh yeah.
But but yeah, that's all that was coming to mind. I think there was a lot of good examples of, we want to lift these women up, make them stronger, make them soldiers. Is there anything about this movie where Miyazaki's intentions were along those lines? Or I don't know. Is there anything about that?
I was looking that up too. I was looking to see if there was any kind of quotes or what my first like search was what were things Miyazaki said about this movie in interviews. And then like through that I kind of sifted around. And there's no real talk of him saying things like I wanted to make this movie so women feel empowered or things like that. He had no clear like I just he was never outspoken about any kind of agenda in that manner. He's only really talked about Lady Eboshi and San and that they are two sides of the same coin because he wanted it to be where San, her passion is for the spirits, but Eboshi, her passion is for humanity, but not just humanity, the under marginalized or like the marginalized, the underappreciated, because that's why she hires sex workers, disabled people. She had lepers, working in the
Right. Yeah, they did mention that.
and so like her focus was on getting people that other people wouldn't want. And that's where she built her community. And he chose to write these two characters that way because he wanted to show the duality of man and that or of humankind I should say, not of a man specifically. But like the duality of how Eboshi can be seen as villainous within one perspective of the story, but then she's also like a caretaker and she's providing work and homes and a good lifestyle for these people that would have otherwise been suffering. So I don't think he had a clear intention with making a type of feminism icon film, but instead just wrote these things because they fit like these are the themes he wanted to encompass within this story.
Do you think Lady Eboshi is the bad guy?
You know, I think on my first watch I definitely thought she was the bad guy, but she's not even really like we have to kill the forest spirit. She's just kind of going along with what's his name? Jigo?
Yeah, I wanted to
Because
remember his name too. Is it Jiro?
uh
Look it up.
I'm looking it up. I don't want to mess up again.
Don't
Jigo.
start stressing yourself out now.
Jigo. His name is Jigo.
Jigo? Okay.
Yeah.
Jigo.
And I think even he's like motivated by greed because the emperor that we don't see in the story, but the emperor has said that he wants like the head of the forest spirit. And Lady Eboshi wants to help because that would mean that the emperor and her could do a trade route and she could build her village up more. So her motivations themselves are not evil, but what she's doing is not good. So that's just another thing where one of the things Miyazaki said was that he didn't, in this movie, nobody is like evil or bad. Like they all have a mix of it. Like nobody is good or evil. It's all encompassing. They all have something in them that doesn't make them lean wholly one way. And for Eboshi, I
Also,
think
real quick, we never got to see the Emperor, right?
we never saw the Emperor.
All
Yeah,
right. All right, good. I didn't miss
yeah.
it. All right, go ahead.
But for Eboshi, I think if you want to go like for the traditional story route, she's the villain. But I use air quotes and I say that lightly because even at the end, she's even like, okay, well, let's go back to the village. Let's go rebuild after they, revive the forest spirit.
I'll tell you, Lady Eboshi, I really like her.
She's cool.
She's she's really cool. I know she's doing questionable things, but it's like you said, I think they're operating in a gray area because she doesn't want to eliminate specifically all the animals and the entire forest. She definitely wants to get rid of any of the animals that stand in her way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's for sure, but she is doing other things that
The thing is like which do you she values humans over, it's not that she doesn't value the animals, but she values humans over the animals.
right.
So if that means that her people can have a safer place to live and have more resources and more food, then yeah, she's gonna like burn down part of the forest so they can expand their village and people could live comfortably.
And
Is that a
is that a
bad thing?
wrong
Yeah,
idea? Yeah.
exactly, that's the question, is that bad?
Ashitaka, he says they should learn to live in harmony, of course. There's
Of
got
course,
to be a
yeah,
balance.
that's the optimal outcome.
Yeah, Lady Eboshi, she's just a really cool character. I like her leadership role. I like how she speaks. I like how she's very calm.
I love the voice. Like Minnie Driver voices her, and I always kind of just today with today's animated movies, a lot of times the celebrity voice doesn't do well because
Shout
they're
out to
doing.
Chris Pratt. He's gonna
Sorry,
do well.
he's so cool, but
Chris on.
Chris Sun, but the celebrity voice doesn't always hit. It's it doesn't always like do well, and there's a huge kind of wave on animation where it's like we should get professional voice actors instead of just name grabbing and getting people, but this is not the case for Lady Eboshi because Minnie Driver does a really good job as Lady Eboshi. I
But would
love.
you say she was a name grab?
At the time, yeah, Minnie Driver was big. This is like during her Goodwill Hunting era.
Okay.
She was pretty big.
Yeah, I think you can tell when someone does a good performance when you don't hear their voice, or like it actually seems like they're doing a character and not just their voice.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I like Lady Eboshi for those reasons. I think she was great. And then Jigo, right?
Jigo.
I liked him at first. And
Yeah.
then I started thinking he's the bad guy in my eyes.
Yeah.
In my eyes, I see like this guy is like a secret whispering
Like
evil
a
bad guy.
like Worm Tongue from Lord of the Rings Two
He
Towers.
Oh yeah. Yeah, right.
He's just kind of the one that's in the background
He
ushering these forces.
he seemed more deceiving because he his words welcome you in. They're very inviting and you it's like you
He's
can let your guard down with him.
Yeah, he's a pretty funny guy too. Like the way he talks is very like open and he's like, "Hey, I saw you coming up the road. What's going on, stranger?"
Yeah, and he talks I was thinking ASMR. Like he talks very calm, very relaxing. Also Ashitaka too. Like a few this movie has a lot of characters that speak like, you know,
ASMR.
yeah, ASMR.
Ashitaka, I don't remember him raising his voice a lot. I just remember him being like, "I need to go to the village to find the iron bullet where this came from. I need to go." And then I was like,
Yeah.
"Whoa."
I like that. I
Yeah,
like the way they were speaking. But
very the
yeah, Jigo,
Batman.
then near the end though, it was like, oh man, this guy, I think he knows better. I think he knows if he cuts off the head of this forest spirit, the dangers that's gonna happen, and he's in the wrong for knowing what he's causing right now.
Absolutely. I think the villain of this is the disrespect that Jigo was showing the spirit of the forest, and because a lot of it also is greed. Like that's the thing too, is there's just kind of like in the background there's this greed because Jigo, it's a passing comment, but it's enough to where it shows his motivations, and it's that he wants, he wants a boon from the emperor. He wants the emperor to owe him one. So he's like, okay, the emperor said he'll give, untold riches or whatever he wants to the guy that brings him the head of the forest spirit. So let's go get it.
Right. And this is supposed to be somewhat of a kids movie, like we spoke about. Maybe more towards teens. But I was thinking for just a slight moment, I was thinking, wow, this is gonna end with the world dying. I was thinking for a moment, like, wow, they're actually gonna do this.
The world is surrounded by that ooze, and then the end.
Yeah, it just dies. I'm
Well,
like,
the
that
world
is
don't move
bold
to the
decision,
beat
but
of
I
just one
appreciate it.
drum.
But but then I snapped out of it and I thought, no, wait, kids have to watch this. It has to end. It has to be a happy ending. But I mean, just to think that it could have been a dark ending, I think that would have been pretty cool, honestly. Like, wow, the world just died. They ruined it.
It would have been a cool ending, but I know Miyazaki-san. He's not he's not gonna just give you a downer. He's not Isao Takehata and his Grave of Fireflies. Miyazaki's gonna give you something that gives you hope at the end of the film. In any of his films, they
Did you
end
feel
with
hopeful at the end?
I did. It was a beautiful ending with like the grass regrowing and they're called kodama, those little spirits with the faces. The little
Yeah.
kodamas coming
What
back.
was that about? That just represents what? Because they're
Like
not animals,
they're little forest spirits.
and they just represent just
Like the life of nature, basically.
so not humans, not animals,
No, they're just like nature.
nature ghosts,
Nature spirits.
nature spirits.
Yeah.
They don't have
This
underwear.
isn't Spirit Away. This is not hell. This is
No, I'm not going there with that. I know hell when I see it. That was a Spirited Away.
the bathhouse.
But yeah, I like those little things too. Just slightly creepy.
They don't have underpants because they're all natural.
Mm, okay, okay, okay. But yeah, slightly creepy,
yeah,
slightly cute.
yeah.
They're cool.
They're cute little guys, little peeps.
But now I wanted to bring up, since we're talking near the end, Ashitaka doesn't really hold any hard feelings against Lady Boshi. Like at the end, he decided that he was going to go back to, what was it called? Irontown? What was it?
Irontown.
Irontown.
He's he's my favorite character in this movie. I love Ashitaka because I think he has like a good head on his shoulders, and he sees that. He sees both sides of like, because if you see his, where he lives, his village, he's a prince in his village. They're always like they have these hunting parties and they have these watchtowers and they live in fear, but when he goes to Irontown, he's like everybody's so happy. Everybody is so secure because they have their walls and they have their way of doing things that make people live in peace. And I don't know, we didn't get enough of his village in the beginning, but we did see that there's not a lot of young people, and I think that that can be a little bit of a testament to, maybe some of them died, and because they weren't careful enough and they weren't safe enough and things like that. When you see like that room where it's all these like old, like the older men, and then he's the only young one in the room, and they're like he has to make a journey, and he's the only young man there, and that made me think like, where he's from, their village is not big, but it's probably because they've lost so many people to like the boars and all these other animals. and does see something admirable about Irontown, but he also sees that they're meddling in something that they shouldn't be meddling in, and that's like the iron bullets.
Literally metal.
Yeah, little metal. They shouldn't meddle with something. S-
Come on, Caroline, say what you want to say. They shouldn't meddle on metal.
Hey. Anywho, but he sees that duality of it. And yeah, he at the end he decides to help rebuild Irontown because I think overall he likes what they're doing. Just, except with, burning down trees and killing wolves and stuff.
Hundreds of animals.
Yeah, hundreds of animals. But he likes what they're doing and he likes how humanity is flourishing with them. But I like his I don't know, what's the term? He sees both sides of things. He advocates for the spirits, but then he also advocates for humans.
He's level-headed.
Yes, yes.
Did you feel like you were leaning towards one side over the other? So, like human or animal while
The
watching
movie
this?
the movie definitely tug a war with my emotions because whenever I think a lot of times I was more inclined to side with the animals because I'm like, oh, their homes, they're suffering, they're growing weaker and all of that. But then afterwards, upon reflection, you're like, but if I was living there in those shoes, I would be terrified and I would want to live in a safe town like Irontown and things like that.
So, while you were watching this, you were feeling like, all right, you know what? The humans seem kind of right now. Or like, no, now the animals kind of seem like I'm
Mhm.
rooting for them. I want them to win this war. Were you actually going through that
I was
thought
I was
process?
I was more siding with the animals than I was with the humans, I'll tell you that.
That's what I was trying to figure out because I feel like with these movies, I haven't seen Pocahontas in a while. I haven't seen Fern Gully, but now I've seen the other two. Now I've seen Princess Mononoke, which is another film that gets compared to Avatar, and
Mhm.
I remember Avatar very well. But I have a feeling for these movies. I'm gonna guess for the other two as well. These four movies I've mentioned, I feel like they kind of lean you more towards the animals and nature. Definitely, this was a case in Avatar, big time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Humans were bad, technology's bad, and we have to fight back. And I feel like, well, I don't know. I wanted to talk it out because I think people do tend to appreciate an animal's life sometimes more than a human's. And I'm not saying that's better for one way or another, but hearing that a dog died or like, couldn't get saved in a fire or something like that, that's horrible.
Yeah.
But then sometimes when
Yeah.
you hear like a human fell off a cliff or something, it's like just news. It's like you scroll by it. I don't know. There's a lot of little intricacies in there, but do you feel that way? Like these movies kind of lean you towards the nature side, like team nature, team animal?
I think they definitely do lean more towards the nature side. I was racking my brain for all the films that we listed and then there's also like Tarzan. Tarzan is kind of one of those things. And
Yeah, nature versus humanity.
nature versus humanity,
And
a
you choose
twinge of it.
nature.
Yeah. And I definitely think they do, but you're so right on how, as humans, we are more inclined to feel sympathy and love for an animal. Think about Harambe. You remember Harambe?
Oh, I do.
That was
Of
huge
course.
because, and everybody was so upset at like the mom and the little boy that, got in her to Harambe's pin and like caused him to die because it's like you should have been more careful. You should have been watching your kid. Why did you let him go into that and get into that situation? Like that poor gorilla had to die and things like that. And I think there is a part of us as humans that just love animals
More than
more.
humans.
Yeah. And on the flip side of things, like with I've watched a lot of true crime documentaries. And the telltale sign of like a psychopath and like a common denominator in a lot of like
Yes.
serial killers is that they kill animals first. Like they'll kill like cats or stray dogs and things like that. And that's like on the flip side is like, I think like even Ted Bundy was one of those people. He like killed stray animals in his backyard and stuff, and he's called like truly evil and like disturbing, but also for the human crimes that he committed. But that was a telltale sign when he was growing up, and a lot of serial killers have that same common denominator when they're children, when they're growing up. That's how they start. And I definitely think that's the inverse of how as humans we love our animals. And animals will give like that's the thing like also like with dogs, they love you unconditionally. You could mistreat a dog so badly and they'll still be so loyal to you. Like that's why they're man's best friends.
Yeah, they're so pure. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They're not like humans who can piss you off, stress you out, you backstab you, betray you. A dog loves you. They're cute. They're cuddly.
Yeah.
Cats, goldfish, ponies, horses, chickens, ducks, bunnies. They're
You
cute.
you
All
name
of
it.
them. But here's the thing though. Now we're getting into this territory. What about ugly little things like a
I
cockroach?
was gonna say, don't say
You got to
it.
stomp them out. What about the cockroaches of the world? What
Those
about the
are
flies? Those pesky
not
flies you don't want flying around in your room.
animals. Those are insects, good sir. And
They're not part of the animal world.
they bring disease.
Flies?
Flies definitely do.
I thought it was mosquitoes.
Well,
Mosquitoes
that
for sure.
they do both of them. I mean, mosquitoes because they're like injecting into your blood, like they're sippies from you.
But what about flies? They just
Flies are like they're walking bacteria. Like there's even I watched a little PSA about dog care, and it's like do not ever let your dog eat anything a fly has been on because they could get like worms and all these illnesses because just on the surface of a fly is so much bacteria.
all right. Here we go. I'll pull out the Exodia right here. What about frogs?
Kill them, burn them all. I don't care. I want them extinct. I want them
They're
gone.
ugly, hideous, and
They're hideous,
useless.
ugly, they're scary, they're
They're
slimy, and I
slimy.
hate them.
Always hated them.
Always. I can't stand them.
You see? So what about these animals who aren't cute, Caroline? A frog's an animal, right?
Frog. It's an
Right?
amphibian, but yeah, fine. I'm selective in my animal love, but like I have respect for a lion and like these
You don't
carnivores.
respect frogs who
I do not
eat
respect.
flies?
I respect them because I'm not going up in frog filled territories and roasting them or laying waste to frogs everywhere. I let them be. They let me be.
You would roast them?
I don't know. It's just something to kill them.
Well, they get rid of these pesky flies that you're saying that carry bacteria and can get your dog sick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You
They
got
they,
to.
they snap them up, Yoshi style.
Luke's life is more valuable than that of a fly. I'll tell you that right now. I ain't afraid to say it.
Oh, absolutely. There's a ranking, of course.
Yes. I'm not going outside and just filling the air with pesticides or things to kill a fly.
What about snakes?
Ooh, that's rough.
What about raccoons? Those trash
Raccoon-
pandas.
Raccoons are okay. We have a
They're
couple of
okay?
raccoons. Yeah, they're okay.
They're
They're
kind of
just
scary. Have you
they,
seen one? When's the last time you
they
saw one?
I saw one a couple of years ago in my own trash can. I was looking at it through we have an outside camera like facing our driveway. And I saw them running around.
They're a little
They're kind of
scary.
their eyes when the light flashes on them and they're like, "Oh,
Yeah, it becomes pure white glare.
yeah, that's scary. That's scary stuff."
And they're kind of big.
Yeah.
They're bigger than Rocket. Rocket stays pretty lean.
Rocket is small
Yeah.
comparative to an actual
An actual
raccoon.
raccoon,
Yeah.
which is more a round animal.
Mhm. Mhm.
I've seen one like last year, and we were trying to throw out trash in a dumpster. It was a family event. We went to go throw out trash in a dumpster.
Oh.
We were staying at an Airbnb, and there was like two raccoons guarding this dumpster. There were the guardians of the dumpster, and we didn't want to get anywhere close to it. I think we ended up just launching the garbage from where we were.
You have to just power toss it.
Yeah, I don't think they would hurt you.
I think if you get close enough, they'll try to bite you.
Yeah,
Some of them have rabies and stuff.
yeah, exactly. Are they cute enough to leave alive, or
I can't wait till
are
the
they in the
day.
frog territory?
No, I can't wait till the day we domesticate raccoons. They don't
Oh,
have to
you
go
want
through
a
the.
raccoon pet?
If I could, I would.
Really?
If we could teach them to not be little scavengers and go through the trash, that they will be provided for healthily with a meal. Yeah,
So you think they're cute?
I think they're cute when they're not upset.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think they could be cute when they're not like like moving so
Savage like.
scratching, yeah, scratching around your garbage and jumping
Hmm.
around, and yeah.
I'm the same thing like for possums. Possums are
Oh,
along that line.
they're a little. This is gonna take me a little more to call them cute. They look a little.
I always tell Davy that Coco looks like a possum.
Nah, Coco's cute.
She's got
The
possum-like features.
not even what
She got sometimes she acts like a little possum, the way she runs around and stuff.
Chihuahuas are just little, well, cute mice looking dogs. Yeah.
Coco's like Chihuahua possum, Chihuasum.
All right. Did you think of that just now?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I think yeah, I think Coco's Chihuahua as well. Very awesome dog. But anyways, yeah. It goes back to whatever we were talking about. We love animals
We
if they're cute
love
enough.
animal. I love animals that do not scare me in the sense of being slimy, creepy little things. I can't stand bugs. I think I draw the line at bugs. I do
What
not
about
like.
lizards?
I, yeah, I don't like lizards
We have a
either.
lot in Florida. I
I
see
like
one every day.
mammals. That's my thing. I like mammals.
What about bats? They carry a lot of disease.
I've told you about my bat story in the
Yeah.
parking lot.
Uh, Court Star Mall.
North, but you're close.
No, I'm kidding. I'm thinking of Stranger Things. I wanted to call out Stranger Things.
Of course you would.
I don't even think it's called that though. Court Star? I don't think so.
I thought it was like
No,
the Wonder Mall.
no, it's Court something. Star Court, I think. Star Court Mall.
Stranger Things
You're
Mall.
watching season 3 right now. You should know.
Star Court.
Star Court. There you go. I got it. I got
Yep.
it right at
Yep.
the buzzer.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, then. So, is you mentioned very earlier in this podcast that you were gonna bring up some comparisons. Did we already start talking about that, or is like a list of something references, comparisons? I don't know what it was.
Pulling it up. I'm pulling it up.
Oh, so it is.
Yeah, it's
There
like
is
a
a
little
list.
bit of a double, like some things. So in one scene, Ashitaka intervenes between like Eboshi. That's the scene where San was on the roof. She was gonna fight Lady Eboshi,
Right.
and Ashitaka intervenes, and it's like his right arm was making him do things, and Eboshi shouts out like, "If your arm is gonna get in the way, let me just cut the thing off." And then later on in the movie, her arm gets cut off.
Oh, okay. So the callback. I gotcha.
Little callback.
We didn't even talk about that at all. The whole symbiote thing with Ashitaka.
Yeah, that was just kind of there. I know Miyazaki talked about that because he said he wanted to show that even though the English dub calls it something that's not good, he in the Japanese, the wording is more of like spirit powers, because he wanted to portray that even those like that super strength Ashitaka was getting was not like, even something that was bad can be used for good, and that more encompasses his theme of nothing is really bad and nothing is really good.
He hasn't seen any frogs lately.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
says that, right?
clearly he has not
Absolutely not.
seen any frogs.
All right. So, I mean, they mentioned that it was like the demon spirit, right? Or evil spirit of
Mhm.
the forest that does this.
Of it was the it was supposed to be an embodiment of hatred and rage because it came from that boar that attacked them earlier.
Now, I like that concept too. is like their, I don't know, it's like the force or something, right? You
Yeah,
could use it
kind of
for
is.
good or evil, and then it. Well, I kept calling it symbiote because it kind of does act like a symbiote. It uses a host and it eats off the hatred that it was carrying,
Yeah.
right? It was a little strange because it comes into play sometimes. Like his arm, I don't know. It was like it almost didn't need to be there. It was cool that it was there, but he could have just been infected with it and not have powers. And it's just, it was like a he's pretty much on a timer. He has to find a way to cure himself before he's dead. That's initially how this whole story started.
Yeah, that's how it all kicks off.
So it's strange that it gives him powers that he could use occasionally. It doesn't have like a enormous impact on overall story. Like he does decapitate people with the strength of his bow and arrows and stuff, but outside of that, it was just weird that he had some sort of imbued power from the spirit of hate.
I liked it. I liked that it wasn't always into play. I feel like that would make a character, whether it be Ashitaka or even like any other characters, it would make a character overpowered. But
Yeah, he
it
would
was,
be like a hero or villain, whatever
yeah.
he decided to do.
And I like that he couldn't control it. He was just kind of like at the whim of whatever this infection was. And the only time we really see it at full power, the infection, is at the boar in the beginning of the movie, and then later on, the boar at the end, Okuto,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where Okuto is not stopping. You can't stop him with anything because he's too powerful. He's too strong because of this rage that's filling inside of him. So it makes sense for Ashitaka because it's only on his arm. And so every now and then it kind of spasms. And when it does spasm, you'll notice that's when it starts growing. So after he gets like those super strength scenes later on, that's where you start seeing it spread.
I thought they were beyond saving. Now that we're talking about that scene when Princess Mononoke got caught.
Oh, that was like a the end.
Yeah, she was definitely submerged in all of that. Evil leech.
He saved her with the power of love.
Yeah,
But it was
and,
also Morrow really saved her with the power of love.
yeah,
He's
that
the
was
one
a
that,
real love. She even said, "I gotta use the last of my strength
and
to get her out."
it was really neat too because Morrow and Eboshi are also pretty. They're totally two sides. They're mother figures trying to protect their side of the this war going on between nature and humanity. And in the end, they both kind of not really though, because Mara got the last word, but they both kind of give up their quest of like exterminating one another because for Morrow it's like she even said I was saving the last of my strength for that woman. However, now like I'm
To
going to
chomp her head
to
off.
chop her head off, like to bite her head off, but I'm going to save my daughter.
Yeah,
And so she goes and
so love wins.
she grabs San, and then for Eboshi, she was going to stay to finish off Morrow, but then she finds out that Irontown is in danger and decides to like go back to Irontown. But before she can really leave, Morrow comes around and bites her arm off.
Yeah, that was another. That was another. I think that was the last like real violent scene. I know
Yeah,
the forest spirit gets his head cut off.
freaky thing. Yeah,
That is a yeah, that's a strange.
it was scary. It was scary. The forest spirit scares me.
This is what I was thinking because I wonder how they come up with that. I wonder if this is based on anything or just a random like all right, during the day he's going to look like a big giant thing and then during night he's going to look like a deer with antlers and a human face with paint on it.
The only I do not know enough about this topic, but the only thing that I could really find was that this movie is very much influenced by Japanese mythology and culture and history. But I know a little bit about Japanese mythology and I've never seen anything like that. So I really think that the Forest Spirit is a Miyazaki original.
But also the transformations, is that based on anything? Because I'm thinking,
Uh,
why is it one thing during the day, another thing at night?
I don't.
A night walker, right? Or
Yeah, the Night Walker. I
night
think that's what it's
walker.
called.
Yeah.
No, I mean the only thing I can think of is that there's they have in Japan they have Shintoism, and they have like a goddess who's the sun, and then they have her brother is like the moon. And so like that's like the only thing that I can really think of is that day and night, like there's a transformation, but I don't see how that really influences directly the whole fear like forest spirit.
Does he mention anything about why it looks so weird and creepy as in because when it's a giant walking creature, I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
It's beautiful in a scary way and then just like huge and surprising and just mystical. And then when it becomes a deer looking thing or ram or whatever with all the antlers, it's almost beautiful. I think I thought they were trying to go for beauty, like the beauty of the forest spirit, but it was pretty until you see its face. Then it's just
Oh,
strange.
it's unnerving. Definitely unnerving.
The eyes look at you a certain way.
It's just like,
Yeah. Is there a reason for that, or is this like a accidental, Sonic design and they didn't get to update it? Like, what's this?
I couldn't find anything. And maybe I just didn't look in the right areas, but he never said, I wanted the forest spirit to be like this or to look like that.
I wanted to creep out kindergarteners.
Everybody,
Every of all ages. I didn't
all
discriminate.
ages, will be creeped out by this.
It was very strange looking.
I do think like the Nightwalker is meant to invoke some kind of sense of awe of like, whoa,
It did in me. I really liked the way it looked.
absolutely. I think the design is amazing, but part of me, I guess, upon reflection, thinks that the forest spirit as a deer looks scary because sometimes nature can be scary. You think of like natural disasters and things like that, but the body is
Sharks.
unsuspecting like a deer because nature can be beautiful.
It always is in all its forms.
Absolutely. So that's where I can think of it, but I don't have any interview or quote of him saying that.
That's a good idea you have, though. That you can't just assume it's all. I guess there is some dark and light to nature.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I took you off the beaten path with this list or references or what we're doing.
Not the only one. I only had two. So the only other one was just that um Ashitaka gets healed by the forest spirit, but it's just like that arrow wound or bullet wound that he had. He didn't heal his curse. But later on, when the head is reattached to the forest spirit, not only is Ashitaka, and because like San also had those curse marks over her, but also the lepers in Irontown were healed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
How was
didn't
that
catch that.
shown?
I didn't catch that until the I went back when I saw this. I was like, "What?" So I went back to the movie. I went to HBO Max and I fast forwarded to the end. And the people that had the wrappings around them, like they removed it from their face. They don't have leprosy anymore.
So they just cured everything.
Yeah, he just the forest spirit just healed all.
Maybe this is a hint of what we can do in our real world.
We are the world. We are the children. Just coexist.
I was no, I actually took a dark approach to that. I was saying maybe we could burn down more forests and then
Oh
the
my
forest
gosh.
will
You're the nature guy. How could
it'll
you ever
it'll
think that?
rage out on us and then we have
Oh
to learn
my
our lesson
goodness.
and then it'll start curing all diseases.
No, no,
No?
no, no.
So this had a bad influence on
I
you?
am not going to feed into this notion.
All
I
right,
did
what?
want to tell you a story that I think was really neat that I stumbled upon when I looked this movie up. It's a pretty infamous story, but I want to tell it to you because I'm pretty sure you haven't heard it. It has to do with Hayao Miyazaki and the release of this movie in America. As I said, this movie took 2 years to come out in America. Also, by the way, that was like a pretty underhanded thing that uh was not cool. It was the English rights were bought by Disney and Miramax. Now, they had previously Disney was and Miramax were impressed with Miyazaki because of My Neighbor Totoro. They really liked My Neighbor Totoro. And that was kind of the I need to pull up a list of like the Ghibli movies because remember how I told you in Castle of the Sky, not all the movies came out the year they came out in
Yeah,
America.
it wasn't in the same order
It
released.
it wasn't like the theatrical release in America is very different. Spirit Away is the one that like after Spirit Away, all the movies came out like consecutively in America because Spirit Away was just that much of a wow. But before that, it was like very few. Like Castle in the Sky, which was the first Ghibli film, didn't come out until like 2003, even though it came out in 1986. So Princess Mononoke was set to release the same year that it premiered, 1997. However, Disney Miramax was really concerned because they felt that Western audiences would not like this movie. They did a screen test in Missouri and it really was not received well. People
Oh.
did not like the movie at the screen testing.
Were they saying, Miyazaki, you need to add a comedic relief?
So wait for it. So because of this, you know who was heading Miramax at the time was Harvey Weinstein. So
Hmm.
Harvey Weinstein was kind of in charge of the English release of Princess Mononoke. And he approached Miyazaki and insisted on cutting parts of the film because it's a 2 hour and 13-minute movie. And, you know, cartoon, like animated, they immediately were like, oh, cartoon for kids. And so Harvey Weinstein's like, hey, we got to make this more palatable for kids. You need to cut the film down. And previously, I think I mentioned this in Castle in the Sky that the same people who worked on Castle in the Sky worked on this movie called Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind. It's not an official Ghibli movie, but a lot of people, HBO Max included, put it in Ghibli because the people that made Nausicaa went to start Studio Ghibli. So it's done by the same people. And Harvey Weinstein was also in charge of Nausicaa years prior. This is 1984, and it came to America like 1986 ish. It came out later in America. And Miyazaki was so offended because when Nausicaa hit America, he cut the film, like Harvey Weinstein cut the film heavily. It's almost like a what's it called, Blade Runner kind of thing. And he even released it under a different name. It was called Warriors of the Wind, and it's called Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. So going back to Mononoke, when Harvey Weinstein told Miyazaki the same thing, like, you need to cut this film down, like, big time. You need to cut it significantly. It needs to be like an hour and a half. During this meeting, Miyazaki was so mad he left mid meeting. He refused to see the meeting through. Several days later, the producer of Studio Ghibli, Toshio Suzuki, sent a katana to Harvey Weinstein's office, and on the katana was written the word "no cuts."
What?
Yeah. Here, let me look at the Discord. I have a picture of the katana.
Of a katana or the katana that was
The
sent?
the katana. No cuts is written in Japanese on the blade.
What? Is this a gift slash threat?
Yes.
That's
So
crazy.
the film was later released in the US 2 years later and to limited theaters. It wasn't a wide release, it was limited release. And when asked about the incident, Miyazaki, he was asked like, "Oh, how did the negotiations go with Weinstein that you were able to get this movie?" Miyazaki smiled and said, "I defeated him."
Wow. Good job.
Yeah, the only thing is that because of that, though, like I said, Disney Miramax released it to limited theaters, and then they reported that the movie underperformed and didn't make its money back.
Oh, of
Eh,
course.
So they would be selective in the films that, like, in what films they picked from Ghibli now after Mononoke, and then jokes on them because then Spirited Away came out like 3 years later. So ha!
Wow. And what year was this? What year was it coming over here?
This it came out in 1999 in America, but this negotiations were going on in like 97, 98 ish.
I'm just trying to get a sense of when all of this was happening because I've never been aware of any of the Ghibli films coming to theater. That's just never been in my, I've never looked it up. I've never it's never been in my interest. So this is just interesting to find out now how this was going on.
Yeah. I remember wanting to go to the movies because there's this movie called Variety, and that came out in 2010, and that's a Ghibli film, and that was in theaters. That was also like the what's it called? I think they called it the cinematic debut of Tom Holland
What?
because he voices the main character in Variety. And this came out in like 2010. So this was around the same time he was going to play Spider-Man. He was announced to play Spider-Man, and then Studio Ghibli was like, "Hey, we'll get him to voice this character. He's going to be big."
Wait, in 2010,
Mhm.
he wasn't.
Oh, wait, I'm
He
getting
was
the year
nowhere near
wrong.
close to. Yeah, he wasn't close to being
I'm thinking
Spider
this
Man
is
yet.
post Iron Man, so it's got to be. But
This
this is
is Iron Man 2,
oh,
so he's not even. Yeah, even on the radar yet.
I'm looking at Wikipedia, and it says this film marks the cinematic debut for the British dub, marks the cinematic debut of Tom Holland.
So
Let me go to his filmography.
yeah, I wonder why they chose him because it's not from Spider Man fame.
Uh,
He probably just auditioned really well. I don't know what he did before Spider Man, honestly.
he was apparently in musicals,
Yeah, he did
and
theater. Wasn't he in theater?
then for the British dub, his manager got him a role in the Studio Ghibli film Variety. Hmm. Yeah, it's his first film.
Yeah, there you go. So nothing before that. Well, we know, like,
He was in other types of projects, but no films like
yeah.
musicals and theater and things like that.
So I think he got it just on his audition alone.
Saoirse Ronan is also in Variety. She plays Variety.
Oh, nice.
But I remember seeing the trailer for Variety, and it was playing in theaters in my city.
See, this is like in the unknown for me. I don't remember any trailers for any Ghibli movie. I didn't even know when they were in theaters. They did not exist in my life for a long time.
Till recently.
Yeah. So this is why I'm trying to get an idea of the years and when this was happening. It's interesting.
I'm just thinking of, man, imagine what we could have like. I don't know how you could cut this movie down. I know it's 2 hours, and yes, Miyazaki is a fan of that empty moments, but those are really prevalent like later on because Spirit Away is like the one where you feel the empty moments. Those are intentional, but in Mononoke, I don't know. I didn't feel like, oh, like because in Spirit Away you have those moments where she's sitting and she's eating, or she's there with like Chihiro is there with Haku and they're like kneeling and the camera holds on them. The scene is pretty long where she's crying and eating the rice ball and looking like the train, things like that. With Mononoke, it really feels like we're going on a journey, and all of this is part of the journey. And I can't imagine cutting it down.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I don't see any wasted time in this movie. Not that Spirited Away has wasted time,
Yeah, yeah,
but
but
I'm just saying like a lot of it is important to the story. And maybe if you wanted to look at it through Weinstein's eye, for Spirited Away, he's like, all right, cut this out. Nothing's going on. Nobody's talking here. Nobody's talking there. But for Princess Mononoke, there's things going on that's
yeah,
always important to the story.
exactly.
So wow, that's just funny. At the 1 hour and 30 minutes is like, yeah, kids and their attention span, we got to get it shorter.
And that was like the whole point. Like not the whole point, but that was one of the points that Miyazaki wanted to make with Spirited Away is that you don't have to give children, an hour and 30-minute film with nonstop action because their attention spans are so brittle. He said, you should treat them like it like you should give more credit to their attention spans.
But this was before iPads.
Definitely before
I
iPads.
wonder what he thinks about that now.
I think he still has that mindset, but if anything, he's probably pushing it more. Like, you need to teach kids to be able to sit down and focus and things like that.
I wonder what Miyazaki thinks about TikTok.
Oh, don't don't traumatize the poor man. What's funny too is that after this movie, Miyazaki announced he was gonna retire. He always does this. Like, back in, I've looked into like Ghibli
He always does
history.
false retirements.
Yes, he did. After Mononoke, he was like, "Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna retire." And then he goes on vacation and he gets all the ideas for Spirit Away, and then he makes Spirit Away. And then after Spirit Away, he's like, "I did it." To be fair, Spirit Away was hugely successful. That's the most successful Ghibli film. They haven't topped themselves since. And so he's like, "I did it. I did it." And he was gonna
That's when he
retire.
should have retired.
And then after that, he was like, no, you know what? I feel in like he takes a little retirement. He's about to start his vacation, and then he gets the idea for Howl's Moving Castle, and it's like, oh,
But maybe for real after this one he should, because
oh, he's
you were
already.
saying how he takes a whole month to do like 1 second or 1 minute of the movie.
You know,
How much is it?
even though his track record is pretty bad, I do think that How Do You Live will be his last movie, because yeah, let me find it. He said,
Like at this point, you won't have a choice.
yeah, in his younger age, he used to produce 10 minutes of animation every month, but now his speed is reduced to 1 minute of animation per month.
Yeah, this is the last one. 1 minute.
This is the last
And if he's
one.
making a 2 hour film,
And he's he's 81. He needs to.
he needs to enjoy a retired life.
The thing about Hayao Miyazaki, though, and I guess it is really inspiring, but he does a lot of the work himself because he's a perfectionist. Spirit Away, and the same thing for Princess Mononoke. He drew all of it. Like, he drew all of the, what's the word, storyboards himself. And the storyboards, while they were doing production for Mononoke, they had to be redrawn and redone, and he did it because he's like, okay, like, this is my
Redrawn and
work.
redone for what?
Because something about like the production, and they had to redo it. They had to make some changes during the production of the film. So he went back and he looked at all of his storyboards and was like, okay, I'm going to redo some of this stuff, and he did it.
Yeah, that's why maybe after his son, making his film, he thought, yeah, I got to do this on my own.
Here, director Hayao Miyazaki personally corrected and redrew more than 80,000 of the film's animation cells. Back for Princess Mononoke was the last film to be done on animation cells. Let me see if I can find that. It's a it's almost like a hand-drawn process. That's how anime was done. They would do them on cells, and then the camera would kind of scan them, and that's how they would do their animation. After Mononoke, they started going to computers and doing the computer animation style.
Okay.
But beforehand, a lot of it was hand drawn. A lot of it was cells that were scanned into the camera and computer, and it was a long process to do. And so he had to go through and retouch and work 80,000 cells. And overall, the film used 144,000 animation cells.
So even now, with the power of the computer, it's taking him a month for 1 minute of animation.
Yep,
It's got to be good.
it's gonna be. I trust him.
Were people back in the '90s rallying around on MySpace and AIM saying release the Miyazaki cut when Weinstein was saying you got to cut it down?
I don't know. I wasn't around for that. I do
Yeah, in your
know.
toddler stages, you weren't like aware of what was
I
going
wasn't
on.
aware of
No.
the social, economic state of Ghibli versus Miramax.
Mm. We got to go back. We got to look back into
This
this
does
history.
make me want to watch. Oh, here we go. So that was the Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind, because Harvey Weinstein didn't butcher Mononoke because Miyazaki stood his ground. But Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind, Miyazaki wasn't the renowned Hayao Miyazaki. He was Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind was he wrote the story. It's based on a manga that he wrote personally. It was his passion project. And his buddy, Toshio Suzuki, the guy who sent the katana, was the one that was like, hey, this story is really good. You should make a movie about it. Come to my studio and let's make a movie. And they were like, okay. And Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind did really well. And that was the one that did really well. And it got like imported over to America. And Harvey Weinstein like cut it down and he released it as Warriors of the Wind, and it did really badly and things like that. But in 2003, 2 years after Spirited Away, they re-released Disney. Now Disney, no longer Disney Miramax. It was just Disney. They got Nausicaa and just re-released it on its own, no cuts, because they felt like, hey, this guy does have the makings of greatness, and we didn't appreciate that.
That I'm feeling like, hey, good for you, Disney. About time. Do something.
Also, they got Shia LaBeouf to play the dude in
What?
Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I'm
That's
looking at.
inspired casting right there.
They got Shia LaBeouf. They got Patrick Stewart. Oh my gosh.
Really?
Yeah. They got Uma Thurman.
This
What?
is a must watch.
They got Mark Hamill, and they got
Again.
Jodie Benson, who is Ariel.
Wow. This is a must watch.
Yeah, I want to watch this.
You haven't seen it?
I have a long time ago.
Okay.
It was one of the first Ghibli films I watched. The first one I ever watched was I think it was Howl's Moving Castle. And then it was Spirit Away. And then after those two, I was like,
It's always the first one that
this
gets you.
this is something great. And then I started going in order and watching the ones that interested me.
But you still have a few to complete this
Yeah,
catalog.
there's quite a bit that I haven't seen.
When did you kind of drop off from it?
I think Variety was the last one I watched, and that was 2010. So the
That's
movies,
Saoirse.
yeah, that's Saoirse. So I saw Variety, and then after Variety, I haven't seen any of the movies after that. I just kind of dropped
That's
off.
2010, you said?
That's 2010. So
So did
there's
Marvel also have too much of an impact in your life as well? Is that why you kind
maybe,
of
maybe,
missed a few here and there?
yeah, maybe.
Okay.
I think
I see.
2010. That also might be like Disney when Disney was just finally coming back again, like with Tangled. When did Tangled come out?
2010.
Yeah,
Huh.
2010 was
It
Tangled.
was?
Yep.
That wasn't my guess. I was just trying to think 2010 what was going on around there. I was thinking of Disney Channel. I think th- our era of Disney Channel is pretty much done by then.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah.
that was like the rebirth of Disney. They even call it like the neo renaissance. A couple of the Disnerds, because after Princess and the Frog, that was when popularity for Disney movies started picking up again. It was like Tangled, Frozen.
After Disney and the Frog, so their
After
last 2D animated movie?
Yeah, yeah. If you look at like the filmography of Disney animated studios, the movies before that, they're enjoyable, but they weren't the big ones like Lion King and, Little Mermaid, things like that. They,
Yeah.
they weren't that status anymore. They had kind of fallen off. But Princess and the Frog did really well. But the big one that really brought Disney back on the map was Tangled. And then, of course, Frozen and, all of that. All
I
the
didn't
ones
feel
after.
the impact of Tangled. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, because you
I haven't
were
seen Frozen either,
you were
but
full Marvel. Like that was it. You were gone.
no, well, I was gonna say that, but I felt the impact of Frozen. I
Yeah.
saw it everywhere. Everyone was singing "Let It Go." Do you want to build a snowman? Like even me not watching it, I knew how big it was. Tangled, I'm finding out right now that apparently it was just as big, just as exciting for people. I thought it was like a throw off, like like throwaway. Like this is a fine movie, but let's move on.
No, Tangled did really well in the box office. Let me pull it up.
Oh,
Yeah, they 592 million in comparison to like let me go to Bolt cuz Princess and the Frog did okay. They were like, "Hey, you know what? We might actually be doing well." But like Bolt made 310 million and then Tangled made 592 million. So they were like, "Hey, okay, we're getting good with this. Let's make like
We're
Wreck It
getting a little
Ralph.
better.
We're getting a little better." And then they made like Wreck It Ralph. Wreck It Ralph was all right, and then they made Frozen, and Frozen was like, whew.
Frozen was
They
a
made
game changer.
like $1 billion from it.
Yeah, you brought up their animations were not hitting their golden age of animation, not
Hmm.
that tier. Aladdin, Little Mermaid, Snow White, whatever. But yeah, what was happening that they were like at such a lull, and then once they hit the Tangled and Frozen era, it almost seems like an accident, like they just stumbled upon greatness again.
It really, yeah, because there's a, and it's funny too because Disney went through at least like two of those valleys because I've seen almost all the Disney movies, and they
Are
started
you
off,
Disney nerd, Carolyn?
yes,
Okay.
they started off with like Snow White, and it's like a feature length film, animated. What? And that's where you get like Dumbo, Bambi, Cinderella, all these classic, the old Disney movies, Sleeping Beauty, all of those good ones. But then you get like The Black Cauldron. That was such a failure of a movie. It took $44 million to make and it only made back $21 million. It
Ooh,
was that was like the okay, Disney is over kind of era. And
party.
yeah. After that, we started getting little one-off films. There was like Fox and the Hound, Great Mouse Detective, all of those things, but they just weren't hitting it. And then at the same time, we talked about it yesterday when I was talking about Don Bluth. There were films like The Land Before Time. Like that movie came out and it was like, whoa, here's this epic. And so that was like that was a valley for Disney. And then they came out with The Little Mermaid. And it's like, oh, here we are. We're back at it again. We're making these films and you go all the way to Tarzan. And then after Tarzan, it goes back down again. They had a couple of hits. They had like Lilo and Stitch, but that was kind of the outlier because Emperor's New Groove didn't do good, Chicken Little didn't do good. And then you go back up again. Tangled is like up on the incline. We're getting there. And then Frozen is the peak. And so they just kind of stumble upon these things because, they were also kind of going like Raya and the Last Dragon didn't do that well either, but you can also kind of attribute COVID to that. And then Encanto just shot it back up again. That's what it's like making movies.
Yeah, but I think they found their stride. Even though Raya didn't do well, I think it was a good movie. I don't think people well. Actually, I didn't really look up what people thought about the movie very much.
I think it kind of stunted its own growth because it didn't hit theaters.
Right, but now comparing it to Studio Ghibli, they've stuck to the 2D for the most part, and they're steady. From what I
Yeah.
hear, they're steady.
Yeah.
I
Ghibli
wonder
is like the
why
Disney in Japan.
Pixar, right?
I
I'll say Pixar. Pixar's
Yeah,
better than Disney. I would
I'm
say.
just I'm just thinking of like that renownedness, like, oh, the new Disney movie is coming out, we gotta go see
Okay.
it. But like for them, it's like the Ghibli movie's coming out, we gotta go see it.
Well, I'm just thinking, how come they haven't turned to 3D? Is it just because it's more? They're just used to tradition and they're just masters of their craft and they don't want to try. Well, I know Earwig and the Witch. Was that enough to scare them away from like, oh no, we're not going to do anything like that again?
I don't know. There's this movie called Lupin, um, the third, and it's breaking a lot of. It's not a Ghibli film, but it is like breaking ground 3D animation that looks really good and still sticks to the traditional art style. I'll have to show you it, the trailer, like just because it looks really good, and it still sticks to that kind of 2D animation. It's a nice blend of it, but I do think that a lot of it has to do with, yeah, them being masters of their craft. 2D animation is how they've always done it and trained with and experimented with, and it's always looked great. But and then yeah, Earwig didn't do that well, so I don't know, that might scare him off. Also, Ghibli doesn't do yearly releases. They kind of did at first, but then they started kind of
Does Disney and Pixar do yearly?
Disney does. I think Pixar does too. They do yearly
I
releases.
wonder how they do that. Like, how is it so fast?
They have different animators working on different projects.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like just split between teams. You know, you get this year, you get that year,
It's
but
also like
still, like, how
it's
many people do you need to get it out that fast?
it's not the same people too. Like they have Disney has always gotten people like Byron Howard. He worked on like Zootopia and Tangled. And those movies are pretty far apart. Byron Howard did Tangled in 2010 and then Zootopia in 2016. And so
Oh, okay.
you have like space and then like hey, while you're kind of working on your next film, we're going to get somebody like Rich Moore who did Wreck-It Ralph. And then you have different writers for different movies and it's just kind of like you have them in enough rotation and you hire enough people for enough, like especially if you're Disney, you have the resources and then you just have all these people like hey, work on movies, and you have them so many people within enough rotation you can do it yearly.
That's impressive to me
I think so too.
because it takes a while. I know, and I know Miyazaki's at a different pace now because of how he wants to do certain things at his age. But even before that,
If you look at like the you know Studio Ghibli doesn't really have a, how when you go to like a band on Wikipedia you could see who plays what and who does what. And with Walt Disney, you can see like everybody has like story and screenplay credits. You can see several names repeated throughout the Disney filmography. Studio Ghibli, like the amount of people other than like Miyazaki and Takehata and Suzuki, like these are the only other people mentioned in their Wikipedia, and that is not a long list.
there's always involvement of some sort.
Yeah, so there's a lot of overlap from the same people in these movies, and that's why they kind of take a long time to make.
I don't really have a clear idea of how one is cheaper than the other, but I've heard that a lot that 3D animating is cheaper to produce and quicker. I know at least it's quicker because of the programs you could use, but
Hmm.
I don't know how it's cheaper. I guess it's because of the amount of animators you need or need to pay, or I'm not sure, but that's the part that gets me of how they get it done so fast, and then how they keep it up to quality. And I don't know. It's interesting to compare the two. I think we brought them up almost every episode. Disney and Studio Ghibli,
Yeah,
and there's a lot to compare between the two.
there is a lot, but I know you're a 3D animated fan, but I love the classic, the feel of 2D. And I always think of the love and the care that goes into making it. A lot of time with 2D, a lot of it is hand drawn, and that's why I have like such a special uh what's admiration for movies like Cinderella. That movie is hand drawn, and then just you have kind of like that flip where that's kind of the same technology that they were using to make Cinderella. They just put layers of animation over each other so that way that movie can flow. And a lot of that was done for like the older Ghibli films like Castle in the Sky, and like later on when we watch like Grave of Fireflies, and eventually when we hit these movies before Princess Mononoke, those are hand drawn scenes that you're seeing. And I think that there's a beauty behind that and something admirable. And that's why I really like that Ghibli sticks with that same kind of thing. And I think I talked to you about The Tale of Princess Kaguya, and we were looking at the art style of it and how they went the extra mile to make that movie look hand drawn. Like the art style looks like paintbrushes and watercolor, and there's such a amazing creativity that goes into thinking of making a movie like that.
Yeah, the thing that used to get me was watching, like, if it's Beauty and the Beast, is watching her dress when they're dancing.
Yes.
Or I saw a good comparison with Snow White, and how they use reference of like an actual person dancing, and it just looks perfect. And the biggest one is Little Mermaid, and the way her hair flows in the water.
Mhm.
That is so impressive. I can't even believe, like, I'm looking at every single moment of, like, how are they drawing the hair to move like that, to just look so
To
perfect?
sway and to flow.
And I know they also use references for that too. They had like an actual person in the water and just like taking references of how the hair looks and how it moves underwater. So I definitely appreciate things like that. But more specifically, if you know what I like about 3D animation is that
The
the
details.
face, the face is so expressive. The faces, I love the eyebrow movements, the eye movements. Like this type of animation could get exactly what I like out of like actors and actresses, subtlety and like speaking through body language and nothing over exaggerated. They could speak with their eyes and just like little movements in their face. It's like that's awesome.
I agree. There's definitely admirable traits with 3D, especially like the way Pixar does it. So detailed. There's that video where they look at like all the detail work of Pixar animation. You can see like the knit of their sweater and the hair, like the
The
strands. It's
cat
just,
hair and the way it hits
yeah.
the light and you see the slight fuzz on.
And that was where we talked about how there's that like circle of progress where when I can't remember which movie it was. What year did Toy Story come out? But the animators of Pixar were looking at Studio Ghibli and saying, "Oh, we need our stuff to move like that. Like we need to have that same kind of mobility." And they were taking inspiration from Ghibli animation to make Toy Story. And then cut to years later now with like Earwig, they were taking inspiration from Pixar to make Earwig. It's just this never-ending cycle of inspiration.
Except with Earwig, they probably should have studied up a little bit more.
They should have consulted some some
Pixar,
some veterans,
Pixar experts.
some storytelling veterans.
Yeah,
I'm sure the animation probably looks good. I'm not like against it or wary of it because of its animation style. I'm wary of it for its story.
we're definitely gonna watch it, Caroline.
Yeah, yeah, we are.
The time is approaching
We are.
pretty soon.
At some point we will.
It won't be the next episode, but
It's
it's in the
down the road.
horizon.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's part of the Ghibli journey.
Absolutely. Got to hit it eventually.
But is there anything we missed in this movie, Princess Mononoke,
I just
that
had
we didn't talk about?
a piece of trivia, and it was that did you know Leonardo DiCaprio was almost casted to play Ashitaka?
You like getting the big names, huh?
They do. They do.
Wow. So this would have been what year was this again? I can't.
19 it came out in 99
Okay, it came out in '99. So what did Leo do up to that point? I know he was acting since he was young,
since he was young. Yeah, yeah,
so he was
yeah.
definitely a name already.
Well, in 1997 was Titanic.
What? Okay,
So,
mystery solved.
yeah, there's that.
Mystery solved. Perfect. All right.
But they didn't get him after all. They got his name is Billy Crudup, and he was in some stuff. He was in this movie called, let's see, Sleepers. Everyone say I love you. Uh, what else were you in? Nothing I know him from.
Yeah, I haven't recognized any of those yet.
Mm-hmm. But he's a pretty accomplished actor.
He did fine at ASMR here.
He was in Mission Impossible 3. That's probably the only place I know him from, but that was in like 2006.
He was probably just a background extra.
Yeah.
I don't know what role he played. I haven't seen that movie in a while either.
He was in Justice League?
That I can remember. Tell me which one.
He played Henry Allen in Justice League. Is that
Henry Allen. So is that Barry Allen's
Barry's
dad?
dad? Yeah.
What? What?
Yeah.
Man, they're going for the big names, Ghibli.
I mean, they predicted it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Wow.
plays Barry's dad.
Saw something in him.
Yeah, they
Not a
saw
hero, but the father of a hero.
the father, the father of a hero, the making of one.
An inmate. All right, that's perfect. I think we can leave it at that, Caroline.
I think so too. This was a good movie. I feel like, you know, we didn't really talk about a lot of the plot because the story of it is just so massive, and it had a lot of good things. Like that, I just wanted to end it off with this was a good movie and it had a lot of good themes, and I know that it can be a little bit intense, but it's a really good movie. And I think that even upon rewatch tone, if you ever go back and rewatch it, you'll find a lot of moments that now that you know where it's going, you can kind of see a little bit better how it builds up.
Where do you rank it so far in the Ghibli journey?
Second, Spirit Away, Mononoke, and then Castle in the Sky.
I have the same order, but with the caveat that I think this one is more rewatchable.
Wow.
But I just gotta give credit to Spirited Away for being
It's
just
it's something special.
yeah, it is special. It has something special. But yeah, that's it.
That's it. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you are listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform, give us a like or a follow. My bad, that's YouTube. Give us a follow, an honest review. If you want to get notifications from us, hit that notification icon on Spotify or wherever you're listening. If you're listening to us on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon if you want some more. Thank you guys.
Thanks for listening. Goodbye and good night.